Hello, scrappers, recyclers, and investors interested in companies that, well, have kind of something to do with scrapping and recycling world, or the people that are into it. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live. It is great to be with you all on another Sunday afternoon. We're having a beautiful day here. I hope you are as well. Scrapping Irish apparently was the first one in, but Street Copper 11 was the first one in from Illinois. and I have to say this. If you all haven't seen, I think it was his last video where he made the Copper Goddess. Oh my God, that was beautiful. I mean, such great work. Congratulations, Street Copper. That one came out awesome. That was really pretty. Electronic Scrapper, great to have you here. Mike does stuff. Welcome from Wisconsin. Very cool. Hey, my dad is from Wisconsin, Menominee. I don't know if you're anywhere near Menominee, but yeah, my dad grew up on a dairy farm in Menominee. Well, all right. It is great to be here, and we are going to dive right in. Ryan Hoffman, welcome from Michigan. We got some other folks from Michigan that'll probably be dropping in as well. So welcome to everybody. It's great to have you all here. All right, so we're going to dive right in. We're starting out with our precious metal discussion, and we are talking gold. And I'll tell you why here. But first, I do have a little disclaimer to make. I am not sponsored by APMEX. ICAST Enterprises, welcome from Tennessee. Oh yeah, I tell you what, I'm still high from everything I learned on Bid Summit, man. Just fantastic. Okay, so I am not sponsored by APMEX. I receive no compensation from APMEX whatsoever. They're just one of a few entities that I use when I trade physical gold and silver. And I like the charts that they have for gold and silver, so that's why I use them. Daniel Houston, welcome to the show today. All right, so gold. Here's the 24-hour, and we see that gold was kind of doing a bunch of gyrations, but you know we broke through the 2,000 barrier for a little bit here. And if we look at the 3-day, we see here's you know, this popping up over 2,000, but there was a pretty steady climb going on here for the last 3 days. Here's the week, and we see this looks like a real nice general uptrend. Now, why when we look at the month do we see the gold was dropping and then started picking back up again? Well, unfortunately, it's because of what's going on in the Middle East. You know, it's one of those unfortunate things in our industry that bad things that happen in the world tend to drive people to buy gold as an investment hedge and a safety mechanism. And so it's one of those things that just bothers me that when bad things happen in the world, the price of gold goes up, and I'm one of the people that benefit from bad things happening in the world. But hey, we're not causing those bad things to happen, so we just roll with these things, because Lord knows we're also suffering from the other things that happen, right? So enough of the doom and gloom, though. Let's get back to the price of gold. Where you know, we touched over that 2,000 mark. We love seeing that. The question is going to be, will gold stay up long enough that the scrap yards, the buyers of our e-waste, are going to raise their prices back up again? And that's a hard one to answer, but I think that given the amount of unrest that's going on in the world right now, we're probably going to see gold stay up for a little while. So I'm thinking that we're going to see gold prices on our e-waste recover here in the not too distant future. So if you've got some stuff that you're planning on selling, well, let me rephrase that. I have stuff that I was preparing to send to Board Sword. The prices came down just a little bit, but that wasn't the reason why I was holding on to this stuff. I was holding on to this stuff because my scale went wacko on me, and I had to get a new scale. So now I'm in the situation where the new scale has been delivered. I feel comfortable weighing stuff up to send it to board sort, but now I'm thinking, maybe I'll give it a few days and see what happens with the prices, because we may see some action there. I don't know. I haven't spoken to Chris, and I'm always a little bit leery of trying to press Chris, because that's not fair to him to put him on the spot for what's going to happen with prices. So I just see that we see the prices going back up. So maybe we'll see some stuff going on there. And then if we look at the year to date, we see that gold is starting to get back up again to earlier highs of 2060. So that's pretty nice. And for the year, we're coming back up. For the 5-year, we're pushing up. We've got these nice peaks here. 2024, almost 2000. We're just pushing 2000, and we're so there's a ceiling here just above 2000 that gold keeps banging off of. So we'll see what by the way, those of you that are investors, this term resistance. It's like gold bangs up against this, just pops over 2000 and then comes back down again. It pops over 2000 and comes back down again. So we've got this resistance up here at just over 2000 on gold. All right. So, but of course, if we look at the real long term, going back to the mid 90s, we see that gold is a good long-term safe haven investment. But you just have to be able to hold on to it long enough that when you have downturns like here, that you're not being forced to sell it when there's a downturn. So yeah, essentially when I buy gold and silver, I'm buying it, planning on holding it for many, many years. So the short-term things like we see in the 1 month and the 3 month, they don't get me too terribly worried, because back when I bought it, I was doing fine. All right. Well, enjoying seeing that. Now, having said that, I'm not buying any physical gold right now. I am mostly because, hey, Roger, no worries, man. Great to have you in, man. So I'm not buying any physical gold or silver right now, but that has nothing to do with what's going on in the markets per se. It is what's going on just generally in my life right now. I'm using all the money that's coming from Shark Scrapper that is available money. So, after I pay my recurring bills, after I set money aside for the shark research donations, the rest of that money is being used for what happens next with the Shark Scrapper channel and the Shark Scrapper business. So that's the only reason that I'm not buying any physical gold or silver right now, because I have some near-term needs for that money. So anyways, Mike, welcome from Parts Unknown. It's just like pigs in space. Oh man, that's right. Recycling. Well, yeah, I agree. Earl is great, right? Earl is awesome. I mean, the only reason that I watch Mike's channel, right, is to see Earl. And then there's the two cats, the mom and the baby in the backyard. So, hey, Mike, you gonna take those cats with you when you relocate? If you relocate down the street there, I mean, I know you're probably gonna take Earl, although Earl's probably gonna keep on going back to the old house. Or maybe those cats will just find you. No way of knowing that, right? So, all right. So now our safety note for the day. I tell you what, you cannot make this stuff up. You just can't make this stuff up. I don't know how many of you have seen the short that I put up Saturday I had an appointment to meet somebody. I had plenty of time to get there. I'm driving down 95 and all of a sudden it's a parking lot. And I mean, we're just barely moving. We're inching along, we're inching along. And then I finally get to why we are stuck. And this is what we end up with. Right. I'm going to let one more time just to make sure that you got this. Because I got to admit, I was pretty freaking surprised when I saw this too. It's a freaking boat, and it's taking up the 2 left lanes of the highway. Now, I don't know about you, but parking a boat in the highway is, yeah, that's not where you park your boat. Okay. But I've talked about this before in our safety notes, so it just gave me reason to repeat this. Make sure your loads are secure. Okay. I mean, come on. It's like, I mean, yeah, that's a boat, and boats go on trailers, different than junk goes on trailers, but the same basic concepts apply. You don't overload the trailer, and you use straps and lockdowns and other mechanisms that are intended to keep the load on the trailer and not on the highway. Okay. Because otherwise, yeah, your 3-hour tour becomes Gilligan's Island on Route 95. Shadow Wave Scrapper, Shadow Wolf the Scrapper, welcome to the channel, bud. So, I think we've probably all seen examples of this where a load got dumped, and in the best case scenario, you dump your load, you have to pull over, you're wasting time to reload things. Worst case scenario, somebody gets hurt, and that is one of my greatest concerns when I'm driving the Sharkmobile full of stuff, is that something comes out of the back, goes through a windshield, or otherwise hurts somebody who's behind me. It just that just really is always something that I worry about. You've probably seen pictures of the way I have a cargo net, a freight cargo net that goes over the computers when they're piled up in the back of the truck. I've used that sometimes for other scrap. I have lots of line and straps that I will use, sometimes probably more than is necessary, but it always is in the back of my mind, making sure that I'm not going to have something come out the back of the Sharkmobile. So just think about that a little bit. Don't take it for granted. And that's one of the other things that is really, that we have to be really careful of, right? We get so used to it. We get in a routine and we're loading stuff up, and then, we absent-mindedly make a mistake, and then things go bad. And that's usually how accidents happen. That's one of the reasons why in the Navy, we always have checklists for every evolution that we would perform. We would have checklists to make sure that we didn't forget something simple, because we've done it so many times that it's easy to forget that one simple step. And my guess is that this guy has hauled his boat many times, and he probably forgot one thing, one strap, one latch, one lock, one something. And I don't know if anybody was hurt. There were no fire engines or ambulances, so my guess is that nobody got hurt, unless it had been there for a while and they had already taken bodies away. But still, that's going to be a very expensive repair, and not to mention, I bet you he's going to get a pretty hefty fine. And I know that here in Florida, the Highway Patrol has been really, really cracking down on pulling people over for loads that aren't properly secure, not having netting over top of trailers. They've also instituted some, whether it's a crackdown or it's a new law, I'm not sure, but I've noticed over the course of the last month or so, all of the trailers that used to drive around with loose dirt, loose rock, loose limbs, loose junk, they're now all covered. They've got canvas over top of them. Maybe it's a roller that automatically goes over. Maybe it's something that they've had to put over. But I'm just seeing a whole lot of commercial vehicles that are covering and strapping their loads that in the past would be playing pretty loosey-goosey. So yeah, high speeds and heavy loads are not secured. It's a disaster for sure. I mean, no kidding. ICAST says one can never take too many precautions. I agree. You know, when you're going to be out on the roads, especially, you know, highway speeds here in Florida, we're talking 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour in some places. So, you know, those vehicles are moving really fast, and that's a lot of mass that can shift around really easy. Mike Does Stuff says he uses way too many straps to make sure nothing happens. Yeah. You know, it's the thing, right? Even when you're careful, stuff can go south, right? You can have your load really well secured at 70 miles an hour, a tire blows out, and that can be really bad. So even when you're doing all the right stuff, things can go south. But at least if you've taken a lot of the right precautions, when they do go south, they don't go as bad, if that's possible. So Alex Tech Garage recently got back into scrapping and refurbishing PCs. I missed the work. Well, welcome back, Alex. Great to have you back. It's great to have you here. I try to take the side roads to avoid the highways. You know what? I do that myself. There are times when I will pick up a very large load of PCs in the back of the Shark Mobile, and rather than go up on 95 and cross a really big, tall bridge that tends to be really windy, I will take the back roads so that I'm not driving that fast. I'm not, being exposed to as much wind loading. And if something does go bad, the side roads are usually a little bit safer to pull off on, and less, you're going to risk less number of people, right? I guess is a way to put it. I mean, if you're on a 2-lane road and something falls off your truck, you could still hurt someone behind you, maybe next to you. But if you're on a 3 or 4-lane highway going 70 miles an hour and something comes off, there's a whole lot of people that are at risk. So, got to be careful with that. Good afternoon, Earl. At 70 miles an hour, many heavy objects can still become a sail and take flight. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how the shape of things can turn them into a flying wing very quickly. Imagine a satellite dish. You start getting up to 70 miles an hour and that thing starts buffeting around, and that thing could become a flying saucer, literally a flying saucer coming out of your truck. I do the same, taking side roads when taking a load in, even though I use my wagon. Okay. Yep. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Alex Tech, thanks. In fact, when you're bringing me back. Oh, well, great, man. I am glad to hear that. Oh, and you're in Germany. Cool. Well, it's great to have you here, and I look forward to hearing more from you. That's awesome. Okay, so strap your loads down and be safe. All right, so now we're going to move on to our industrial metal, and I'm sure you're probably thinking to yourself, why in the world I'm talking about this lead? So we're over on the Kitco website now, And let's see, this is always fun with Kitco. Let's see, who are we advertising? John Deere, nothing stops a deer. So there's the John Deere video. And who's down here? New Loyalty Credit Union. Okay, New Loyalty Credit Union. We're not going to look at you anymore. And John Deere. How do I get rid of you? No, that's not what I wanted to do. This is what I want to do. All right. Well, John Deere, I guess we're just going to keep watching you for a while. So anyway, I took in a bunch of batteries, and the price went up for the batteries. And normally, this yard that my non-ferrous yard is pretty stable. They very rarely change their prices. And so it's, I could very clearly see the prices change. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. Why in the world would lead go up? Or, lead must have made some kind of move that these guys were willing to change their prices. So anyway, I decided, well, let's take a look at lead. So we can see on the 24-hour that lead did come up some, and that's pretty nice. If we look at the 30-day lead spot price, we can see a rather consistent trend here from the 13th of October moving up. So, that's when you see consistent price increase like that, that's good, because that motivates the yards to go ahead and increase their prices. Now, we did have this big drop that was preceding it, so this could just be some correction going on with the industry, but still, that was nice. Here's our 60-day. We climbed up over $1.04 per pound. We dropped down to 94, and now we're coming back up again. And it is kind of interesting. So we look at the price right now is what, over 96 cents a pound. Of course, for batteries, my scrapyard's only paying 22 cents a pound. But that makes a lot of sense, right? There's a lot of cost involved for them to handle them, pack them, ship them. And then the people that are buying them, that are getting the lead out of the batteries, have to process them and make their money off of them. So none of that surprises me. And if we look at the 6-month lead spot price, we see that, overall it's still down, but there's not been a whole lot going on here. But what we really like is this, when we see the bottom of the troughs always going up like that. Well, okay, here they were stable, but when you see the bottom of the troughs kind of going up, that's a good sign for us, because, that means that there is some more demand for this product, and we should see the prices continue to make a overall long-term climb. The tops are also climbing, so that's a good sign for us too. So, lead is one of those materials that gets a bad rap, but is still a very important metal for industrial uses. It's never going to have the kind of movement that copper would have, but I love collecting and selling batteries. And because I am what's called a secondary metal recycler here in the state of Florida, I can collect and sell as many batteries as I can get my hands on. Hey, Bush Dog, great to have you here, man. Welcome aboard. It is it's an important industrial metal, but it's not one of the ones that we're going to see really make a whole lot of difference. It's just one that we should continue to keep on scrapping when we're out there. Hey, I'm curious, for those of you that are not in the state of Florida, and you don't even have to be in the United States, because I know each one of the states is different too. So, where you live, how are you able to sell batteries, lead acid batteries, whether they come out of a car or a UPC or whatever? Are you limited to how many you can sell? Do you have to prove where they came from? Are there any kind of constraints that go along with you selling lead acid batteries that's any different than, selling your shred? I'm really curious just to see what kind of constraints are out there in other states and in other countries. So if we look at the 30-day London Metal Exchange warehouse levels, we see the warehouse levels had been increasing. We had a little bit of a curve here at the end. And, you know, normally you would think that, well, if the warehouse levels are increasing, the prices should be going down, because that means there's more lead than is necessary to feed the beast. So maybe there's just a little bit of a lag going on here. I don't know. Here we see warehouse levels were on the 60-day market, were kind of flat and then have started moving up. So maybe what we're seeing right here at the end is the beginning of another flat period. Here we have flat period. This is not very steep up climb compared to here. So maybe what the market's reacting to is that we're going into a period where the stocking levels are going to be relatively flat. So the prices are starting to come back up just a little bit. But overall, you would think that with the warehouse stock levels increasing like this, we wouldn't be seeing the prices going up much. And again, I mean, my prices only went up a couple cents a pound, but still for lead acid batteries, it was noticeable, because normally they're just locked in. We don't see any changes with them. And this is a little bit troubling, I got to admit. The 5-year London Metal Exchange, the inventory's dropped way off, and now they're coming back up. And I don't know if you can see it, but the tip is right here right now. And so we're nearing these highs here. So that means prices, you know, with that much lead in stock, that doesn't bode well for prices unless they start consuming it again real quick, and then the prices either stay steady or come back up again. So, all right, now let's see what's going on with your battery prices and how you can sell them. Let's see, I want to make sure I get up to the first comment for batteries. So I think this was the first comment relative to batteries. Irish says, just sell them to scrapyard, no limit in Ireland. Okay. Electronic Scrapper says no limit on how many batteries he can take in. All right, cool. Street Copper Levitt says, I bring them to the yard with no limits. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Alex Tech Garage, batteries are classified as hazardous material in Germany. You can give them to scrapping companies and still need to pay a fee. Oh, my gracious me. Well, that's just wrong. So lead is classified a hazardous material, but here in the United States, the way hazardous materials are classified, let's see, it's explosivity, reactivity, and toxicity, I believe, are the criteria. And then then you look inside of those criteria, it determines what happens with them. Now, in the case of lead, lead is a hazardous material if you ingest it, if you take it in as a vapor. And so when it's in the form of batteries and such, yes, there are hazmat transportation requirements that are layered onto them, but that's because most lead acid batteries also have acid in them. But it's not something that, you know, would require a lot of careful handling. So we can still sell it as scrap material and get paid for it. Roger says he takes auto batteries to O'Reilly for a 10-cent store credit. I mean, a $10 store credit each, and they limit to 5 per day. The scrapyard has no limits, but they only pay 6 cents a pound. Okay, all right. I gotcha, and I get where you're going there, because, you know, especially if you're somebody that works on your own vehicles, having store credit at O'Reilly's would make a lot of sense. For those of you that aren't familiar with O'Reilly's, it's a store where you can buy automobile parts and fluids and cleaning stuff and tools and the things you need to take care of your vehicles. So that makes a lot of sense for what you're doing, Roger. And yeah, that's good. I get so I got 22 cents a pound from my yard, which is what caught my attention. So the price is a little bit better with them. Patrick Williams, yes, in Ireland, we could not have a ton of batteries, just maybe 100 kilograms or 150 at a time. Okay. Go away, Google Chrome. I don't want your alert. Let's see. Street Copper 11 is telling Roger that's an awesome idea. Yeah, I tell you what, it really is cool that O'Reilly's does that. I don't know if AutoZone or any of those other places do that, but if you do work on your own vehicles, then it makes a lot of sense to take your batteries there, build up that store credit that you will then use at some point later on. The other thing that happens here in the United States, at least in the state of Florida, is that when you buy a new car battery, if you don't trade in the old battery, you have to pay a coring fee, and that is supposed to cover the costs that the local government incurs dealing with the cores from lead acid batteries. But I don't worry about that because I get so many batteries coming in from so many places, and but this is the funny thing. I had to get a new battery, and or I picked up a whole bunch of batteries from a guy, and then he said he needed to go get another battery. Oh yeah, it was the pool guy. So one of my clients is a pool company, and you might think, what would I be picking up from a pool company? Well, they have a battery operated pump that they use when they're cleaning and filtering pools. And so the pump is on a wheelie thing, and they wheel it in, off of their truck over to the pool. They have a battery. They're hooking up the pump to the battery, so they go through batteries pretty quick. And these are pretty good sized batteries. They're at minimum standard car batteries, but some of them are batteries you would expect to see in the larger trucks. And so he goes through a lot of batteries. And anyway, I did a bid pickup from him, and about a week later he said, "Oh yeah, I meant to keep one of those. I had to get another battery, and I didn't have one to exchange for the core." So he ended up costing himself a little bit there. So let's see. Earl Fowler says, "No issues. Batteries in Alabama. Proper ID required. Better prices if you have a pallet full." Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. That's generally the case, right? If you bring in a whole bunch of stuff, you're going to get a better price for them. And ID, I think that's pretty common for just about anything you're bringing in, right? Even when I bring in shred here, they have to take my picture and I have to sign for it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Daniel, we don't seem to have a problem selling batteries here in Houston. Most of mine come out of UPSs, so they're typically smaller. 12 volts, I only get 16 cents a pound. Okay. Yep. Yeah. And that's one of the nice things that, when you get a uninterruptible power supply, you're going to have that lead acid battery in there. That's a good source for batteries. But before I had my SMR certificate, it was very frustrating for me because I could only sell 2 at a time. So that's the law here in Florida. You can only sell 2 at a time unless you have an SMR certificate. And so if I brought in a half a dozen or so power supplies, I could easily end up with a dozen or more batteries, but I could only sell 2 with each visit. Just a little bit frustrating back when I was doing this as a hobby. Let's see. Bush Dog, I've been thinking of draining the sulfuric acid from the batteries for precious metal recovery and then cashing the batteries. Well, I suppose, now, yeah, I suppose you could do that. You'd need to be a little bit careful how you go about draining them. And a lot of the newer batteries, are kind of designed more as a mesh and not just the actual, the little containers of the acids. But it might not be a bad idea. It might be an interesting source. Oh, you know what? Well, I'm thinking about that too. One of the things that I also remember is I remember a guy that when he was taking in some batteries and he realized that the batteries had dried. And so he actually went through the trouble to open the battery up and pour water into the batteries. And his argument, and I can't say he did anything wrong. The batteries normally would have had the fluid in them anyway. And so he filled them up with water so that they would be their normal weight. So he was able to get a little bit more money. I don't know if it was worth the trouble of what he went through to fill them up, but that was something to think about too. Electronic scrapper. Last I went to my yard, lead acid batteries were 13 cents a pound and 55 cents for lead itself. That would make sense, right? Because selling the lead itself, they're just, they can pack a lot more of it into less space. Excuse me. I apologize. So, I can understand that. And the last time I had a bunch of lead, I was very fortunate that one of my viewers bought all of it from me. And that's when I realized, that's when I learned that you can pack almost the maximum allowable weight of a material into a UPS large flat rate box. Actually, if you're really careful, you could pack more in. But we often joke around about would the Postal Service take a flat rate box full of lead? And the answer is yes, they will. And I speak from experience because I filled up large flat rate box with sheets of lead. And I came right up to that max threshold of where they won't, where you can't ship above a certain weight, with the U.S. Postal Service, came right up to that edge. And so, you can ship a box full of lead here in the United States with the flat rate boxes. Alex saying in Germany, scrapyards don't pay you, you pay them. Oh man, well that sucks. Makes it almost not fun to be a scrapper then. That would, oh man, that would not go over well here in the United States. That's for sure. Oh man. Oh, that is funny. Hey, iCast Enterprises is going a little bit off topic here, but he just wants to let everybody know that he has a friend that's going to be on Forged in Fire. Jason Beans. So if you watch that, be looking for iCast's friend. Let's see. Roger says that AutoZone and others do too. O'Reilly is the closest to me. I think we're still talking about taking the batteries in for a store credit. And Bush Dog is saying they have core fees on battery here in Canada. Yep. Yeah. Core fees are pretty common. And Bush Dog, sulfuric acid is hard to come by here and it's expensive when you get it. Nitric acid is impossible unless you have a lab license. Yeah. So that further adds reason to why, if there's a way for you to drain the acid out of the batteries, that might be a good source for you. Just be careful, man. Okay. Just be careful. We want to keep you around with all your parts. All right. So that's lead. Really interesting discussion on lead. I love all the options for how you can either trade your lead in, sell your lead, or if you're unfortunate enough to be in Germany where you have to pay to get rid of your lead, that's what's going on with stuff. So, yeah, righty. So that's lead, and that's why we were talking about lead, because I had that really interesting experience recently when it came to my lead price. All right, so our business note of the day, and I have to tell you, this one was also prompted by a viewer of mine, and kind of in a weird little bit of a twist on this. Some of you may recall last week the week before, I did a video on a iceless cooler. So it was kind of a lunchbox sized cooler, and you didn't put ice in it. It had it had heat sinks on it and a little motor and a fan. And there wasn't a piece of the element that that I looked at, and I was thinking to myself, well, maybe that's the thermostat, or some piece. I didn't know what it was. I literally didn't know what it was. So one of my viewers came in and said that they were pretty sure that that was a thermoelectric cooler, and it was using a Peltier device. So that caused me to go look at thermoelectric coolers, what are Peltier devices, and learn more about that. And that brings us to the business topic of today, and that is always keep learning. I tell you, I'm learning something new probably every day. And if I can learn something new without hurting myself, that's even better. And if I can learn something new without damaging things, like, dropping a pallet load of a half ton of PCs off the back of a loading platform, that's a good thing. And I really like how much I learn from the comments that get dropped on my videos, because there are a tremendous number of very smart people out there that are either directly involved in scrapping, or they watch the channel because of, if not scrapping, just the computers or what's going on with materials and those kind of things. And it always amazes me how when I come up with a question or something that I don't know what it is, or I don't have the answer for it, I can almost be guaranteed that somebody in the comments is going to know it, and they're going to share the answer, or they're going to tell me about it. So in this case, one of my viewers, Gary Kearson 6741, was the guy that dropped a comment. Then I had another couple comments after Gary's comment that talked about the Peltier effect for a cooler. And so I dove into what that, how that works and why it works. And it's fascinating science about the Peltier, that how those electrons work, that those components work. Alex, take care, man. It was great having you. I look forward to seeing you again another time, man. So if you haven't hit this post yet, go to my homepage, look at this post on Peltier effect, see how these thermal coolers work. Really fascinating technology in how these coolers work. So just really enjoyed that. And it really brings home the point of how important it is that we keep learning, because essentially we're not going to stop learning until we're dead. And if we recognize the importance of learning, then we can just keep learning that much more. It's just fascinating to me, everything that's out there. Now, why do I say that's the business note of the day? Well, because when you're running a small business, there is so much you have to learn, not just about the technology of the stuff that you're handling or you're scrapping or you're building, if you're one of the folks that repairs electronics and PCs, but also about business. And just within business, you have to learn how to handle taxes, have to do your reporting. You have to learn what kind of records you have to keep, what kind of licenses you have to have or certificates you have to have. In the state of Florida, you have to understand what's controlled item, what's not a controlled item, what's required to buy controlled items, what things you can't buy no matter what. And then if you're into things like the refining processes, well, you have to learn how to refine that. I mean, why do you use one acid instead of another acid? And oh, by the way, which acids are going to burn you versus kill you? So there's so much learning that goes on. And a lot of people think that, well, I finished high school, I don't have to learn anything more. I finished college, I don't have to learn anything more. We are constantly learning. if we're doing it right, we are constantly learning. And I don't ever want to stop learning until I'm dead. And I don't know, maybe we'll keep on learning after we're dead, because who knows what we are after we pass on. You know, the importance of learning cannot be overstated. Yeah, ICAST, I agree, man. We might as well be gone. And I heard somebody recently that put it in a very interesting way. They said, you know, learning has certain phases. Essentially, one of your first phases in learning is recognizing that you don't know something and that you need to learn it. And then you go through the process of learning it. You're not really an expert at it yet. It's like when you had to learn your alphabet, or you had to learn how to put a sentence together, or you had to learn how to make a something. You know, when you went to learn how to do welding at welding schools, right? You know, you started learning the basics, then you went to the mechanics of it, then you went through actually trying some of it, and then there was a teacher or a mentor, somebody who was much more experienced and much smarter about that, who was there to make sure that you were doing it right and correcting you when you made mistakes. And then you got better at it and you learned it. And then you learned it to the point where you could do it without any supervision, without any oversight. And then you would make that next step in learning, which is where a lot of people stop. And that is learning enough to realize that you still have a lot more you have to learn. And that, I think, is probably the thing that I would ask you to take away from this discussion the most. And that is that no matter how smart we think we are about something, there's so much we don't know about that something. And no matter, you know, if you're not saying to yourself, geez, there's so much more I have to learn, then just take a step back, do a little self-assessment, and say to yourself, really, am I really that smart that there isn't anything more that I'm going to learn about this? You know, it's just really important, really fascinating. And you know, the other thing about learning that, and I'm going to embarrass Scrapping Irish a little bit here, but you know, there's this taking yourself out of your comfort zone, and you know, HH, you're not late if we're still here, man. You know, and I've seen Irish take himself out of his comfort zone and start learning again and taking on new challenges. And I just think that is freaking awesome. I'm going to be taking myself out of my comfort zone before too much longer. You know, there's more information that's going to follow on that. That's just a little teaser for everybody. But sometimes the best things that we can do for ourselves is take ourselves out of our comfort zone and force our brains to start learning again, because there's just so much that we have to learn out there. Wolf 2600, can I donate? I'm not exactly sure what you mean. If you want to donate to the sharks, absolutely, the shark research, please feel free to do that. There's a number of ways you can do it. If you want to, you can drop a super chat right here for this stream. And a portion of that will go to the shark research. Absolutely. If you want to send me a check, you can. My mailing address is on my About page on my YouTube channel. If you want to hit my PayPal account, paypal.me/sharkscrapper, pretty easy to drop money in my PayPal account as well. So yeah, feel free to donate. I don't think that there's $1 million limit on donations, so feel free to dump $1 million in there if you want. Oh man. Let's see, JR Cat, you don't supervise 25 12th grader. Oh man, yeah. You know what? I got to tell you, I'd have a hard time. I'd have a hard time teaching kids. I think. I don't know. You know, I mean, I've done some substitute teaching in the past. I taught English and math aboard ships because we would have sailors that didn't have their GEDs, and so I taught English and math during deployments so that the sailors could get their GEDs and help prepare themselves for the future. Could I be a teacher? Wow. Yeah, that would be rough. That would be rough. I don't know. I tell you what, my hat's off to teachers these days, though, because man, there's so many challenges that teachers face on a regular basis. And I just, I really applaud people that commit themselves to being teachers and you know, and get out there and try to teach everybody. It's a great thing that they do. Okay, so we have had a good discussion so far, and it is time for us to dive into our stock discussions today. Now, you saw from the thumbnail here that we're talking about some retail companies. For those of you that are new to the live stream or the channel, we've got a few of you. This is where I get my information from, the Value Line Investment Survey. These people do not take any advertising revenue. So everything that shows up in this newsletter from them every week is pure numbers and analysis of the numbers without any influence from an advertiser. So that is an interesting. Hang on just a second. I've been asked to check something. Let me see here. I apologize for this little break going on here. Little break in things, but that's okay. That happens. No, we should be good. I just checked the settings, so we should be good there. I'm not sure what might be happening with that, but we'll look at it later on. Thank you for the information, though. Okay, so retail industry, retail stocks. Now, this week, Value Line looked at the apparel industry, the retail automotive industry, the retail store industry, the shoe industry, the retail hardline industry, the retail softline industry. By the way, that means clothes. And then they also did electronic utilities. We've talked about electric utilities in the past, so I thought we would do something a little bit different. I went through all of these retail companies and tried to come up with, by the way, O'Reilly is in this list. So I'll talk to O'Reilly here in just a minute once we get done the two that I was looking at, just because their name came up earlier. So the other thing, for those of you that are new to this, I have a very rigid policy on the companies that I will consider investing in. They have to have increased their cash flow per share, their earnings per share, or their dividends per share every year for the last 15 years. And I will allow them a flat year or a negative year, but only one. So when you see me analyze these companies, keep in mind that I am primarily a dividend investor. I buy and hold my stocks and I let the dividends accumulate. And I also set those dividends to automatically buy more stocks. So I'm a buy and hold dividend investor, boring as all get out. And I am not certified to teach this. I'm not licensed or accredited. I'm just sharing with you what I do and the stocks that I've looked at. So we're starting out with Walgreen Boots. What I was fascinated the first time I learned about Walgreens is that they're actually international. For a long time, I thought Walgreens was just here in the United States, but they're also really big in Europe. So some of you my European viewers, you'll know these folks too. They are the world's premier drug distributor, anchored by its network of drugstores in North America and Europe. And if you've ever been into one of these stores, they've got the front part of the store where you're buying over-the-counter kind of stuff. Excuse me, the over-counter stuff, the kind of stuff you don't have to see the pharmacist about. And then they may, depending upon the size of the store, they'll also have sundries and snacks and, you know, stuff for school supplies and food and beverages and such. So they've got those aspects to their sales. And for them, you know, it's always a comparison of how are the pharmaceutical sales, the back of the house kind of stuff going compared to the front of the house. The bottom line here is they've had some good stuff happen, some bad stuff happen. The summary statement is that risk tolerant, these shares hold generous dividend yields, and they're attractive with long-term upside potential. So when I look at them, what I see is that they are not qualified for their cash flow because they had 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 negative years. And you see that right here, not qualified, 5 negative years. They're not qualified for earnings per share with 6 negative years, but they are qualified in dividends because they've had 17 years of increasing dividends with no flats. So I call that a div 0. This yield is very attractive, 8.7%. You know, that's even more than you can get from the banks right now with the bank CD and those kind of things, which are in the mid 4s to 5s. So this is a very attractive yield. And the share price is very attractive at $22.27. So, you know, that's a value that a lot of people could go ahead and start buying shares at that price. It's not that expensive. But, you know, you want to be careful because there's some challenges with Walgreen Boots. That's why the value line assessment is you have to be risk tolerant because things could be bad with them yet as well. So don't just get suckered into this 8.7% and say, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to buy. Take your time, research them carefully, and see if you're comfortable with the risks that they have involved. I'm not going to go into all of those because those risks and the tolerance of those risks are different for each of us. But I would encourage you, if you're thinking about buying some Walgreen Boots, to do your due diligence with them and be very careful to make an informed decision before you buy into these. And depending upon the service that you use for your buying and trading stocks, there could be a lot more information there. I use Charles Schwab. I've been with them forever, since I was old enough to start buying stocks and understood what stocks were. There are some good research tools that come along with them. They're not the cheapest. They're not the most expensive. I just, they're just what I know and I'm comfortable using. But there's plenty of places where you can get a brokerage account and you can start trading if you want to take advantage of some of these investment potentials. So the other company that some of you may find even more interesting because it speaks to both the retail stock and to electronics is Best Buy. So there's, Best Buy is one of those quote unquote big box electronic stores. It's like a madhouse there on Black Friday with people trying to take advantage of the deals to get the new big screen TV that's 25,000 feet across and would fill the Super Bowl stadium and things like that. But Best Buy does satisfy my requirements, believe it or not. You can see that their dividend yield is 5.2%. So that's a real good yield. And their valid price at $70.25. It's a little bit high, but it's not terrible. Okay. We've seen a lot worse, right? So that's not an unreasonable price for stock. And you are getting, a little over 5% off of it. They're not qualified in cash flow per share or earnings per share with 5 years down in each of them. But they are qualified in dividends per share, which is what I'm most interested in. 17 years, increasing dividends, not even one flat year. And so here we go. with what they look like. You know, they had some trouble coming out of COVID because, like everybody, there was supply chain issues and they couldn't keep stock in place and stuff like that. But you can see that they've it appears that they've turned this around. There should be on the backside improving that. But more importantly for us, their dividend has gone up every year for 17 years. So there's some interest in Best Buy. If you're looking to own some retail type stock, Best Buy satisfies my requirements for a dividend stock, and it might be something that you'll want to take a look at. Now, I did not do an analysis on O'Reilly, but let's go to O'Reilly real quick here, just for Roger. So let's see, O'Reilly. Oh, Roger. Roger, I hope you're ready for this, man. O'Reilly stock price, $914.67 a share. Oh my God. That's really expensive. They do not pay a dividend. They do not pay a dividend. Not 1 penny. Not 1 penny. O'Reilly supplies aftermarket auto parts, tools, equipment, and accessories to both do-it-yourself customers and professional mechanics or service technicians. They also offer services including used oil, battery recycling, and wiper bulb replacement. They're going to get a new chief executive officer. So the old one is leaving. They got a new chief executive officer coming in. But Value Line Investment is raising their 2023 share earnings estimate. For these folks, the outlook for the professional parts business remains particularly bright. And shares of O'Reilly are now ranked above average for relative year-ahead performance. That means that Value Line Investment thinks that the prices are going to still keep going up over the course of the next year. Still, with the stock up more than 25% in price over the past 52 weeks, long-term appreciation potential doesn't stand out. As such, less nimble buy and hold investors should probably wait for a better entry point. Yeah, no kidding. You think? At $914 a share? Yeah, I'm waiting. Well, Roger, you certainly picked a good one there, didn't you? Oh, man. Oh, that was, yeah. Electronic scrapper, I haven't seen blinker fluid either at O'Reilly, and I haven't found elbow grease there either. I keep looking for elbow grease and I just don't find it. So I don't know, man. And the way my knees are going, I'm going to need knee grease here pretty soon too. Andrew, welcome aboard, sir. Getting an early start to your day in New Zealand. Yes, you are getting a very early start to your day, and I'm glad we were here for you to wake up to. So it's great to have you here. And we're just about ready to wrap this up. I have had a wonderful time chatting with everybody. And I look forward to seeing you all over across the pond in Ireland here very shortly. Remember, if you have autoplay enabled, when I end this stream, you should automatically be taken to Scrapping Irish's live stream, which probably started 3 or 4 minutes ago. And if you do not have autoplay enabled, or for some reason it doesn't go over there, you might just get the link or something like that. Hey, Simon, we're just about to wrap up, man. Hopefully we'll see you over on Scrapping Irish's channel. So if you don't automatically get taken over there when I end this one, please go to YouTube, look for Scrapping Irish, and join us on Scrapping Irish's live stream. I look forward to seeing all of you over in Ireland. It's been a great week, and I hope you have a safe and wonderful, productive week ahead. We'll see y'all later.